CSIS 2470 is filmed before a live studio audience.
Yo, I'm craving a pie. Hey everybody, welcome to class. And we're going to talk about a pie today. That is an acronym that stands for Abstraction, Polymorphism, Inheritance, and Encapsulation. So, as usual, there ain't nothing to it but to do it. To the code! So we're going to pick up where we left off on the previous lecture, but we're going to make this class a little bit more generic. We're going to make it an animal class rather than a dog class. And then we're going to learn how to have the dog inherit from the animal. So let's simplify this a little bit for teaching purposes and for genericizing purposes, if that's a word. So take animals, for example. I don't know if you can say that all animals have a breed. For example, do dolphins have a breed? I don't know. I'm not a marine biologist, so maybe I'm totally wrong about that. But we're going to go with no. So we're going to get rid of breed from here, from here, from here, and from here. And we'll get rid of the sitting thing here for now. And we'll leave speak and eat. And actually, we'll replace eat with move, right? So return moving. And we're going to change this to speaking for now, just for simplicity. All right. And then the toString method, let's get rid of the breed. And we'll say this animal is a 37-year-old Rottweiler or whatever it's going to end up being. Okay, so now we've reduced this class a little bit. I think we can leave color. Most animals, I would assume, have a color. I think they all do, right? So the next thing we're going to do, though, is make this an animal. A little bit more generic, right? And so I could let Pluto and Fido be new animals here, and we're going to get rid of the breed that won't be returned in our toString method up here, as I was mentioning a minute ago. And so let's say is the animal is this years old and is the color, right? So that's the output right there. Now, if we look at what we have on the screen right now, if I change this to an animal and this to an animal, everything will work just fine as it is. Pluto is 7 years old and is speckled, right? Or if we wanted to print out Fido, it would say Fido is 5 years old and is yellow. So it still all works. They're all animals. However, we want to get a little bit more specific, right? Dogs are a little bit different than just a general animal. And a bird would be a bit different than just a general animal, right? So let's just start by making a dog class that inherits from the animal class. Right, so if I just come down right here, class dog, and we say that it extends animal. That's all, and now I don't have to put any code on line 32. I can go back to making these dogs, and the dog class is a template that is identical to the animal class right here. It's identical, and I don't have to do any extra code. And let's just to prove that, we refresh, and it still says Fido is 5 years old in yellow. And I can change this to Pluto, and it will say that Pluto is 7 and is speckled. So all we've done is now made a dog class that has exactly everything in the animal class. But we want to add things to it. For example, we want to add the breed. Or maybe we want to add a Boolean variable is a good doggy or something like that, right? We also want to get a little bit more specific. How do dogs speak? Well, they don't speak by saying speaking, they bark. So we can override the speak function. So if I put in here a speak function, well, before I do that, let me just show you that if we have Pluto speak here, let's just, for simplicity here, console.log Pluto speak, and we'll open up the console and we refresh, and it just says speaking, right? But we want it to say barking. So I can just override that, right? Speak for dog is going to return bark, or barking, or whatever, like so. So now when I refresh, it says barking. It overrode it. That is polymorphism. Dun, dun, dun. It really is that simple. It's just a thing that can change what it needs to be based on sort of the costume it's wearing, right? And so this is an animal wearing a dog costume, if you will. So let's make a bird, right? Class bird extends animal. And then let's override its speak function. Speak, and it's going to return, whoa, what happened there? I cannot spell today. Return chirping. That's what birds do, chirping. Okay, So now if I were to make a bird, so let's do this. We'll say Tweety is a new bird who is 55 years old, named Tweety Bluebird. All right. And then if I want to say Tweety.speak, when I refresh the page, I get an error because bird is not defined. And that's because I didn't capitalize that to match the case there on line 40. All right. And there we go. It's chirping. Polymorphism, folks. That's all it is. The idea is poly means many and morph means change, right? Or many forms, right? So basically polymorphism means many forms. And so an animal can take on many forms. When it takes on the dog form, it behaves this way. When it takes on the bird form, it behaves this way. That's really all it is. Polymorphism is one of those scary words that people are afraid of, but that's the basic idea. But let's get a little bit more advanced here now. So we've got polymorphism out of the way. That's the P from api, right? And then we have I, which is inheritance. Well, that's what we're doing on line 30 and line 34. We're inheriting from our parents. The animal is the parent, and then the dog is the child, if you will. In JavaScript, we call them subclasses. So dog is a subclass of animal, which of course would make animal the superclass. Remember that keyword, we're going to need it. But let's do a couple extra things here. We also have moving, right? Well, let's be polymorphic here and make the move function for a dog return running, or whatever a dog does. And for the bird, we're going to say return, I did that again, return flying, right? So now, if we were to show these two dudes here, move and move, you'll see when I refresh that they're barking and chirping and running and flying, right? So there's more polymorphism in action. We're overriding the functions that are built into the parent class or the superclass, and we're changing them to be more specific to the type of costume that we're wearing, right? We're wearing the dog costume, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. So that is polymorphism and a very generic small version of inheritance. But we can get way more specific with inheritance, right? So, for example, right now our animal doesn't have anything to do with, say, a wingspan, right? So let's get rid of the dog here, and we'll get rid of all of, actually, I'll comment that out for now. We may want to come back and use it. And let's just comment out the dogs here, and here, and here, and here. Okay, so let's move these guys down here and get rid of that. Trying to keep it all together here like that. All right, so let's just focus on the bird class. I am going to delete that. Okay, and we'll move this up here like so. Okay, now our code's a little bit cleaner. So on the bird class, we want to, when we create a bird, let's say we want to take in its wingspan. Well, right now I can only pass in 3 things. So I want a constructor that also can handle a wingspan, except as you can see, that's not there. So let's go down to our bird here, and we do want a wingspan variable. So let's put that in there, wingspan, and we want it to be private like everything else. And now we can make a constructor, and the constructor will still take in these 3 things, right? That's part of what the animal does, because if you're an animal, then you have to have those 3 things. That's kind of the rules we've set here. But also let's take in wingspan, okay? Now, we could copy and paste this code right here to handle the first 3 variables, right? And then the last variable will do this dot wingspan equals wingspan. And so we'll pass in a wingspan here of 55 feet, or we'll do like 20 feet, which is ridiculous. And we don't have a setter or a getter yet, so let's just quickly make that. So we say set wing. I'm going to have to change that to just the word span because I'm going to misspell it 1,000 times. So let's just quickly do that right here to span. All right. Okay. So set the span. That's our function here. And we'll take in a parameter, ws. And of course, we'll say this dot span equals ws. That's our setter. And then here's our getter, get span. And of course, it just returns this span, right? Okay, so all this stuff with the octothorpe here is covered in the previous lecture, of course. And so I did rush through that a little bit. But if you're confused about setters and getters, go back and rewatch that previous lecture, okay? But now what I can do here is console.log tweety.span. So let's refresh. So you notice we get an error here because we're trying to get a hold of age here, and we don't have age specifically here, right? So the inheritance is a little weird in JavaScript. In a lot of languages, I could reference it just like this, no problem. But this has to do with the way private variables work in JavaScript. So does that mean I'm going to have to do an age and all this on and on? No, we don't need to do that. What we can do instead is, rather than copying this like we did here, we want to just hand that off to our parent, the animal, and let the animal do it, because the animal knows how to do it, right? The animal knows it has a constructor for handling that very thing. So let's just do that. And the way you do that, because the animal is the super class, we call the super constructor. By saying super, I'm saying whoever I'm extending, which is animal. And then I'm going to pass it, I'm going to give it age, name, and color. Not span, because it doesn't know what to do with span, but it does know what to do with those first three, right? So now I say, okay, take these first three that I don't know what to do, let my parent handle that, and then I'll deal with this one because that's new to me because I'm a bird. All right, let's refresh it. And there we go. It's chirping, it's flying, and it's got a wingspan of 20. Okay, so now what we've done is we've taken our bird costume, right? We covered our animal with the bird costume, and we've overwritten the constructor to take in an extra parameter. It has to take in the first three, of course, because that's what an animal does. And so we hand those off to the parent to deal with them, or the superclass. And then we take care of the wingspan on our own, right? All right, well now, what if we wanted to print Tweety out to the document like we did the other day, or in the previous lecture? And let's go to index here. We have this div called dog. Let's change this to animal. And that means I'm going to need to change my CSS here as well. So let's do that. CSS, and we'll change that to animal. Okay. All right. So now we'll just do what we did before, right? Document.get element by ID animal. Inner text is equal to Tweety. So what's going to happen here when I refresh it? Let's go here. Tweety is 55 years old and is blue, which is all true. But where's the wingspan? Well, because Tweety is also an animal, right? Then we just use the animal's toString method unless we override it ourselves. And so we need to override it. So how do we do that? Well, we just create a toString method inside the bird class. And then we need to, we don't want to leave this out, right? But we don't want to have to copy that and redo it. So we have to somehow get a hold of that and then add to it. Well, that's simple enough. We're going to use that super keyword again. Now before, when I just said super, that's like saying constructor basically of the parent. Well, now we're going to say super dot the toString, right? And so this is going to become whatever this is in the animal class. Okay. So now we're going to set that to a variable, or we can just concatenate onto it, or however we want to do it, right? So we know that this is going to say the name Tweety is some age and is this color. And then we can just add right onto that. We can concatenate on there. We can say and is, or has a wingspan of, and let's just do some backticks here. Backtick, and we'll say span. And so now what it'll say is Tweety, getting that from here, is 55 years old and is blue and has a wingspan of 20, let's go with feet, right? Now we just have to return that, obviously. So we return that. And now when I try to print Tweety, it's going to give me all of the stuff from the animal plus its own special birdie stuff, right? So we refresh, and now you can see Tweety is 55 years old and is blue and has a wingspan of 20 feet. So that is inheritance in a nutshell.
Help! I'm in a nutshell! How did I get into this nutshell? Look at the size of this bloody great big nutshell. What sort of shell has a nut like this? I mean, it's just crazy.
Right, you could see similar things would happen with a dog. We could add the dog's breed, or again, I joked about a Boolean is a good doggy, or whatever, the kind of food that they eat, or who knows. There's all kinds of things you can add. And just keep in mind when you add stuff, make sure that it isn't sort of a generic thing that would be in all animals. That's why I chose a bird, because it's obvious that a wingspan does not apply to all animals. It only applies to flying animals, right? And so that's why I decided to go with birds instead of dogs to give this example. So let's see how much of the A pie we've gotten to here. The A is abstraction. We'll get to that in a minute. The P is polymorphism. Again, many forms. An animal can take on many forms. It can be a bird, it can be a dog, it can be a chicken, it could be a lizard, it can be a dinosaur, it could be all these different things. Well, each of those animals, they all speak differently. So forget about the fact that birds have an extra thing like a wingspan and all these extra things here. Forget all that for just a minute. And let's go ahead and delete all this here. So forget about that. We just have a bird that is an animal, and birds speak differently from regular animals, generic animals, right? Which I don't know even what that looks like. And they move differently. They fly, all right? So let's go back to putting this extra stuff in there now. Let's go ahead and delete this again. Okay, so we have all this extra stuff in here, but these two pieces right here, where I'm overriding a functionality, a method to do something different, that's polymorphism. It's an animal taking on the form of a bird and doing the thing that birds do. Whereas if I made a dog, it would be taking on the form of a dog, doing the things that dogs do, barking and running, right? Polymorphism, done.